Tarde. Boa tarde a todos e bem-vindos à segunda aula do PSR. Primeiro, uma coisa mais final da prática, que é temos uma colega que é estrangeira e por isso, se pudermos falar em inglês, era melhor. Chmod, right? Ok. Vocês importam-se que eu fale em inglês? Não? Alguém tem problemas com inglês? Exatamente, estão à vontade. Mas, okay, so no problem, we can speak in English, they are okay with it. You should buy them all an ice cream or something. Yes. So we are going to class 2. First of all, there are people here that have not been in the previous class. You have not been there. Also, I think almost everyone apart from you. Okay. Okay. So the bottom line is, for those of you who have entered just now, you also know, is that you should install Linux, because that's where we are going to work, this operating system. And for that, you should go to part 01. So before that, if you go to e-learning, there is no documentation there. All the documentation is on a GitHub repository, which is PSR 2223. And there I will put the classes every week. So part 1, part 2, and so on and so forth. And what was supposed to be done for part 1 was the installation of Linux and the installation of an IDE. An IDE is a program to help us program to code. In this case, we are going to use Visual Studio. And after that, we started doing Python exercises, very simple ones, because some of the people who are in this course do not have experience with Python. Yeah, that's because I record the class so that I can share the video afterwards. And you should take away the sound. Já tirou, okay, Chris. And what else? So who doesn't have Linux installed still? Not, okay. We have então com 1 giga? Ok. 1 giga é muito pouco. Quantos pacotes é que você tem? Ok. So the Linux that you should install is a specific version, which is Ubuntu 20.04. Don't go to the latest version, because in the future we are going to use ROS, and ROS changed version according to the Linux version. So we are using a specific version. Be sure to install 20.04. Okay. The reason for that is also that I never use the latest version because it's always full of bugs. So I go to the next version only after some time. So in your case that you don't have Linux, I don't know. Okay, so for this class it's okay, you can use it. Yeah. 22.4. Yeah, so that's the one we are not going to use. We are going to use ROS monolithic 20.4. You should. Otherwise, I mean, if you do not replace, then if you have some problems, it may be because of different versions. And I cannot. That's very old. That's very old. Yes, from 60, yeah, better 20.04. You will have less trouble if you do that. So if you follow by the versions that I recommend, you will have less trouble. If you start using other versions, you are free to do so. But when you have problems, I cannot help, because otherwise I would not be teaching robotics. I would be teaching how to solve different versions of operating systems, because it gets complicated. Diga. Não, também isso logo no Linux. Porque quando fomos usar ROS, mais à frente, agora não. Podem só ter VS Code e trabalhar em Windows. Mas idealmente começamos já em Linux, que é o que eu disse a semana passada. Porquê? Porque quando chegarmos ao ROS, o ROS só funciona com o Linux. Agora o ROS 2 já funciona, nós vamos usar o ROS 1. E só funciona com o Linux, portanto com o Windows instalar. E há duas formas de instalar. Ou com máquina virtual, ou então com dual boot, e a melhor é a segunda, dual boot, que é o que eu quero instalar no Linux em paralelo com o Windows. E depois, quando se arranca o computador, ele pergunta: quer ir para o Windows ou para o Linux? Nos backups? Pois é capaz. É uma questão de espaço. Já tive também, dual boot, de formas. Se usarem a máquina virtual, quando chegarmos mais para a frente, para dezembro, nós vamos começar a usar simuladores, o Ascii, e aí a coisa pode ficar muito pesada. Também depois o computador que tem. Não sei como é que é o seu computador, se é bom, se é mau. É um MacBook 17, mas eu se é um MacBook é porque é mau. Se é Macintosh é. Se quiser, experimente com a máquina virtual e depois se começar a correr mal, tudo. Você é que sabe. Sim, mas já está lá na virtual. Ok. Pois. Okay, so for this class, what was meant was that you would, by the way, something important for those of you who are not, who just started this week, which is that you should prepare the classes in advance. So if you do not prepare the classes in advance and you come here, it will be much more difficult for you to learn. If you try to do the exercise, even though you cannot do them, some of them you cannot do, but at least you try. It will be much easier for you to understand when I explain how you can do it. So the idea was that you prepared part 02 or part 2 in advance, and in this class you can try to do what's missing. And if you have some questions, you can ask me, and I will try. Okay. So I already did some of this in the theoretical class, as you've seen today, this morning. So the theoretical class, I did this exercise number 1. For computing if the numbers are perfect or not. And I think we went all the way to exercise number 3 in the theoretical class. So I would say that you can start from 4 onward, start from exercise 4 and try to do them. I will give you some time, let's say half an hour, 40 minutes, and then I will try to help you if you do not ask for my help first, okay? So first 30 minutes, 40 minutes of this class, you try it yourselves. And if you have questions, ask me, okay? Você está pensando em engenharia biomédica, é isso? Sim. E não, porque aquela engenharia biomédica era nós somos robóticos. Não sei. Ah, sim, mas não era para o sistema. Não digo. Que cadeiras é que vocês têm, assim, parecidas com o programação tem?
Vai conseguir onde vai
Pois isto é mais sempre sim, tá, se for para a parte e quando entra aqui no browser, quando você vai a parte 02, o que normalmente acontece. Pois. Ok. Eu quero ver se você não, aqui tem, aqui não tem. Logo à partida. Assim, quando eu estou guardando, eu escrevi, vocês estão ver, Sempre que eu faço uma nota, se está a dar a música e agora estou a ver. Mas agora agora consigo. Realmente isso para agora está com a diferença. Então, não pode ser isso. Ficar é a organização. Eu me parece jogar. Desbloco. E que faz tudo. It's really lots of different. Because sometimes they straight now they want to learn. If you are in knowledge, that means you can go on using your code. No, for that, you should use VS Code, or Visual Studio Code. So, for example, let me share the screen so you can see. So you can see it here, but I will also share the screen in Zoom. Okay, where is Zoom? I have to find Zoom first. Okay, here. So let's try something very simple for start. For example, the code, my GitHub repository is somewhere in CD, Catkin, workspace, PSR. This is just my path. It can be something else, can be just desktop PSR, something like this. But mine is in PSR 2223. And now we are in part 02, just so that the test is organized. So we are going to do something in P2. So I'm going to create a directory called P2. And inside P2, I am going to create exercise or test Mojgan. That's it, no? Okay. Okay. So you can see here, actually, I will do the same on the right-hand side, so you can see. So this is test Mojgan. There is nothing there so far. So now we are going to create a new file in there. We can do it, for example, with the command touch, and I will create a new file called main.py. So this is your Python file. This is what you are going to use. As you can see, it appeared just there. Now we can edit this code, like with using a gedit or something. And this is our first Python file. Now let's put here, for example, something in Python, something like print. Well, let me do the Python definition already, otherwise this was. So this was what I explained, the theoretical part. where this tests whether or not the code has been called directly from the terminal. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And now here I create a function main. And in my function main, I'm going to print something. Hello. Okay, makes sense to you? So how can I run this? So I run this by doing something like this. I say that I'm going to use the Python, Python 3 interpreter and run the main.py file with that kind of interpreter. So that means read the text that is in main.py using the interpreter for Python 3. And there was a problem here. I think it's because of my tabs. Just a moment. Let's see now if it works. Print help. Okay, sorry, I missed this one. Print 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm using you will see why this is happening in the future. Main is not defined. If name, this is not main, this is name. Okay, now yes. Okay, so clear and Python 3 main. The clear is to clear the screen, followed by the command Python 3 main. So that will clear the screen and then run the code, which will print hello. Makes sense. So this is the standard way of doing Python coding, which is not the way we are going to do it. Why? Because what we are using on the left-hand side is a simple editor. This is just a text editor like Notepad in Windows. In this case, it's called gedit because it's in Linux, but it's a very simple editor which doesn't have a lot of functionalities we will need. So what we do is we use something called VS Code, Visual Studio Code. I don't know if you have experience in that or not. In Visual Studio, no? Okay, so you just install, just go online to Google and say install Visual Code Linux and follow the instructions, okay? After you install this, so this is, you just follow the instructions on how to do that. After you install this, you run it with just by typing code in a terminal. So if you type code in a terminal, you will get the program. The program is organized into projects which are called workspaces. So the thing that you must do first is to create, so you will start from scratch from this point, and you will need to create a new project. So you do this by going to the open folder, and now you open, for example, the place where you have your PSR code. In my case, it's in PSR 2223. So I'm going to open this. And after I open, I must store this folder that I opened like a project as a workspace. So I go to File, Save Workspace As, and I already did it before, so that's why it's going to overwrite what was there before. Replace, okay? Now, you may use more than one folder, not just one, but two. For example, typically you have one folder for the things that I give to you. This PSR 2223 is my repository. And then you will have a second one, which is just for you. And you can have both in the same project. If you go to Add Folder to Workspace. So the place where I put my solutions is this, which is private for me, not for the students. So now you can see that we have a workspace, a Visual Studio project, which contains two separate folders. Now, in one of them, if I go to part 02, P2, test Mosgan, this is where we were writing code in a different way. So from the Visual Studio Code, we can write directly the code here, and it's much easier. So my Visual Studio does a lot of stuff. One is to allow you to edit code directly, like this, and have a file tree explorer on the left-hand side. The second thing is that you can run your code from Visual Studio. For example, if you type here this, you will run this Python file. This second part of executing the code inside Visual Studio, I do not recommend you do this. Why? Because when we start using ROS in a hardcore fashion. So when we really start using ROS, we will not run a single code. We will run 20 codes at the same time. And there, it will be important that you have some proficiency with the terminal and how to run things in the terminal. So my suggestion is that you start programming using Visual Code, but to execute the code, you continue to use the terminal like I did, like this, Python 3, main.py, something like this, okay? So I don't know, I think you asked, and then you run it on some other terminal, exactly. Did I answer your question more or less? A lot of stuff, right? Yes, yes, better. That's the only way to learn. Do it by yourself, and when you have questions, tell me. You do everything in the virtual machine because you are supposed to be not using a virtual machine. So you're supposed to use Linux only. So everything I tell you to do, it is supposed to be inside the virtual machine. Okay, no problem. You can see the movie. By the way, I always record the classes, although the classes from last week were in Portuguese, but you can go to the YouTube channel for this course and check the recordings, and perhaps they are helpful because it seems like I'm starting very far away from where you are, but I talked about this last week already, so it will help. Então, você está-me a perguntar, digamos, como é que se interpreta mais ou menos o que é pedido do exercício 4A, não é? Uhum. É isso, ou seja, ponto de partida é a tabela Ascii. Não sei se vocês conhecem a tabela Ascii. In English, sorry. So the starting point for exercise 4A is the Ascii table, which is a table, it's just a map that translates characters into numbers. So you can see it here. For every character, there is a decimal number, and then in red, there is the character to which it corresponds. For example, space is number 32. So whenever you press space in your keyboard, the number 32 will be conveyed to some other programs that are listening to the keyboard. So what is expected in this exercise, something, is the following. You have a set of, so your program will say, type a key, something like this, type a key. And you press, for example, A. If you press A, the program should do the following. It should check or understand. It should see, oh, A is number 65. If A corresponds to number 65, sorry about this. Okay, if A corresponds to 65, I will have to print all the characters from 0 to 65. So I will print the character that corresponds to 0, the character that corresponds to 1, and so on and so forth, until the character that corresponds to 65, which is A. So this program will print all the characters. It is not going to be from 0, because if you take a look at the Ascii table, this leftmost column, so all this column here that you can see, is actually composed, which is from number 0 to 31, is composed of characters which are not printable to the screen. So tab, when I press a tab, nothing appears on screen. When I press escape, nothing appears on screen. When I press a keyboard up arrow, the same. So all these from 0 to 31 characters are not printable. Therefore, I'm not going to start from 0. I'm going to start from 32, which is the space. So if I press A, it should print in the end a space, an exclamation mark, quotes, cardinal, blah, 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 all these characters up until A. You got it? Não foi isso que você percebeu também? Ah, pronto, mas isso é bom. Perceber o objetivo é o primeiro passo. Se calhar não escrevi bem, mas deixa-me ler outra vez o. Escrever a função print ou previous chars, que não tem parâmetros e não retorna nada, mas que, quando executada, lê um caractere do teclado usando a função read char e imprime todos os caracteres desde o espaço até esse caractere, considerando a numeração de caracteres da tabelagem. Não está assim tão mal escrito, mas eu tenho uma explicação. De qualquer maneira, eu não sei que importa, por isso agora eu tentei fazer. E eu já tento ajudar. Na B, adicionar a função portanto, na B, o que se pretende é carregar em teclas à tua vontade até carregar no carro. Enquanto não carregar no carro, carrega no Sim. Então, para poder a partir do terminal, tipicamente o que se faz é, por exemplo, eu tenho aqui novamente o teste Mosgan, eu vou fazer aqui um copy path, que é para ficar com o caminho para aquele sítio. Depois faço CD, paste, e já estou no sítio, ok? Então, para fazer o programa, foi exatamente o que eu mostrei há bocado. Eu fiz o Python 3 do main. Portanto, é assim que se executa um programa. Mas tal como eu falei na semana passada, isto é uma chatice porque nós temos que estar sempre a dizer, olha, interpreta o fecheiro main.py com o interpretador Python 3. Vou se calhar mudar para inglês para ser mais fácil. So, what we can do in order to avoid having to specify all the time the usage of the Python 3 interpreter is to write what is called a shebang line, which is something like this. So, you start with the cardinal, then this, then you write user bin env Python 3. This is a special line which tells the Linux operating system that whenever this file is going to be executed, it should be executed by reading its contents with a Python 3 interpreter. So if we do this, then we can take away the Python 3. But we must make sure that the main.py is a file which is executable. So for this, first we need to put the permissions of this. If I do -la of main.py, you can see that the permissions of this file are only read-write. What does it mean? I have to explain. I did last week, but I have to explain again. In Linux, every file that you see, for example, a file.py, will have 3 sets of permissions, 3 sets of 3. And these are 3 special groups: user, group, and others. So a file can be read, written, or executed. And These permissions will control whether or not the user, the owner of this file, can read, write, and execute. So we will have to put here whether or not we want to read, write, and execute the file from any of these users. This is a matter of security. For example, if I create my file.py, I am going to be its owner. So in principle, I can read and write from it. So I will put one here in read and write for the user. That's me. And then for security reasons, because of virus, computer virus and this kind of stuff, by default, it's not executed. So there is a 0 there. Then 0. Then someone that is in my group, so someone not in my group, in the group of the file, will also be able, for example, to read and write from it. Because let's say it's someone that is trustworthy, but not, of course, to execute. Whereas people from other groups, so which have nothing to do with the file, are forbidden to write on it, execute it, can only read it. Okay? So if you take a look at the what I have here highlighted, just a moment, I will put this larger. So take a look here. It says here that the file main.py, that's what ls-la says. It will give me a list of the file with permissions. It says here that the file has, for the user is this one. These first three. For the this. Primeira série de 3 é para o utilizador, so this is for the user. Then you have another, let's put it in yellow, for the group. And finally, you have something else, let's put it in red, for the others. There is also an initial something else, which I don't know what it is, it doesn't matter, okay? So there you have 3 sets of 3 characters, which will tell you if the file is readable, writable, or executable in each of these groups. Now, what happens is that, as I told you, for security reasons, whenever you run Linux, whenever you create a file, by default, it's not going to be executable by anyone, not by another, not by someone in the same group, and not by yourself. So you must change these permissions of the file to tell the operating system, this is my program, I trust it, and I want to run it. This is done by using the command chmod. Chmod will change the permissions of the file, and you can use this kind of thing. For example, if you want to change the execution of the user, you have to say u for user, and if you want to also change the group, you say ug for users and groups, add execution permissions. So ug plus x. If I write this, chmod ug plus x main.py, and now I do again the les-la of my main.py, you will see now that I have execution permissions for the user and also for the others. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Wait, before we finish. Now that I have execution permissions, now I can run my code. Actually, you can see here that before it was black. That means it was not executable. And now, to help us easily identify which files are executable, it's green. So the green means, oh, I can execute this. And in order to execute, you just say /, that means from the current directory, execute file main. So now you don't have to specify that you are going to use Python, you just run the code, okay? For that, of course, it must be executable. Just another parenthesis, before I did chmod ug plus x, that will add the executable permissions to the user and group. But if I wanted, for example, to add all permissions to all groups, so to the user, to the group, and to the others, everyone can read and write. It's complete liberal. Everything is liberated. Anyone can read, write, and execute that file. Then I can use a shortcut, which is chmod 777 and the name of the file, in this case, main.py. So if I do the 777, this is a shortcut. It's actually the a decimal number, which then will be converted to binary mask. I will not go into details, but if you do chmod 777 of the file name you want, chmod 777 of main.py, you will get, let's run the LES again, you will get everything possible. Everyone can touch this file in whatever way they want, okay? RWX for everyone. Okay, so that's the long answer to your question, right? How do you run the code? Yeah. Any questions? No? Later on, right? Well, that's later on. I will tell you what ROS nodes are, but that comes in the 8th week. So we still have 7 weeks to go or 6 weeks to go before we get there. But when we get there, yes, we will. Well, ROS nodes are pieces of code that will run and communicate with other pieces of code. So these are processes running. These processes can be written in Python or in other languages. We will mostly use Python, yes, but we can write them in C++, in Java, whatever. Okay, but that will come later on. Don't ever be sorry to ask. I'm here for that. You can ask whatever you want. Some problem. So that's our first victim. You are our first victim. Yes, of course. If you well, I know what you are feeling. Oh, he's going to make me share the screen. I'm so scared. I also felt scared at the first time, but it's not so difficult. Okay.
So I was trying to just print out the key address. I tried. Yeah, I already achieved this.
Yeah, well, when you have a lot of errors, the first place to start with is you start with one on top, because sometimes the errors that are on the bottom are because of the errors on top. Okay, so you start from the top down, and the top down it says line 1, command not found. How are you running this code? Well, after everything well, look, you are putting the shebang line on the wrong place.
Yeah.
But look, the purpose of the shebang line is to tell the system, execute the following code with this interpreter. If you put some code before this instruction, it gets confused. So the shebang line must be the first in each file. If it exists, must be the first in the file. Run it again. Let's see if it works. Not yet. Did you save? I think so. Okay, better now. So now the problem is this thing on line 5. What are you trying to do there? You want to comment? Comment is with a card. That's supposed to be commented, no? Or a comment?
The quotes comment is not.
No, in Python, it's the cardinal.
Oh.
If you want to comment with quotes, it has to be double quotes.
So if I did like this,
Yes, now yes. Okay, now second, now.
This one was.
No, you can have the while too, it's not a problem. But when you write a while, the while is supposed to do something cyclically.
Yeah.
Now, because the key is on the same level of alignment, it means the while is doing nothing. So what do you want to do periodically? You want to get the key and print it, right? Okay, so yes, exactly. Yes.
Oops.
Function object has no attribute read key. Richard.read key. Did you go to the internet to check how to use the Richard?
Yeah, I copied this command. I don't know if it's right or not.
It should be, yeah. I use the formulation on the bottom. So I use the other one, but it's the same. Can you try this one just to make sure it's not because of you? No, not that. You don't need so much stuff. You just need the from Richard import.
This
Yes, copy that one first. Right. And now go there. Go back there to the web page. And you also have k equals read key parentheses. Yeah, just pick that one up. Yeah. Copy that one.
this.
Yeah. I think it's enough for what you need.
Then I put it here.
Yeah.
But now I have to
Yeah, take this, delete that one or comment it if you want.
here I just put K, right?
Yes. Exactly. Can you try? Okay, now it's working. I don't know what you did before, but it's working. That's what's important. Now you will have a problem.
I forgot to.
Yes. So now this doesn't stop because the code is always expecting you to do something. So now you have to close this window and create a new one. Yeah, now you need to create a new one.
Thank you.
No problem. So it wasn't so hard, was it?
And touching it.
Yes, now you can. Diga. Não, não. Tem uma evolução. Tem um exercício que costumo fazer sempre. Espera lá. Então, vou fazer aqui uma função, vou fazer aqui o teste. Como é que você se chama?
Beatriz.
Teste Beatriz. Eu não consigo copiar as coisas, fico a deixar com isto. Parece que não copia. Bom, ok, vou fazer aqui. Então, imagino que eu tenho aqui um código cujo objetivo é somar coisas, ok? Dou sempre este exemplo de somar. Então, vou criar uma função somar, vai ser espetacular. Pega na parcela 1 e na parcela 2 e depois vai retornar a soma do P1 mais P2. Faz sentido esta função. Até pode escrever, por exemplo, print, vou somar P1 igual a mais str P1 mais, e aqui tenho que pôr um mais, portanto, estou só a juntar variáveis com texto, P2, str P2. Ora, enganei, esqueci-me aqui, falta-me aqui um mais para juntar isto. Okay? Vou somar e depois vou pôr aqui total igual a resultado igual a total. Então, normalmente isto acontece sempre que nós sorry, in English. Usually this always happens whenever we are trying to do some function because we get very excited like, oh, this is a really nice function that I did. This is very nice. And after we do a very nice function, we say, oh, that's it. I did a great job. The problem is that if I run this code now, so if I now say test, if now I say /main Beatriz, it will not run the code inside the function. Why? Because a function is just a piece of code that is there to be used, but it must be called, right? So the only thing that is being called is the main, which then prints and then exits. So the function sumar is never called, right? If you want to use the function sumar, you can say something like this. Print 5 mais 4. 5 plus 4 equals str sumar 5, 4. So now you are calling the function sumar. Before you were not. And for example, now, of course, because I have a function, I can always call it with different arguments. But there is a difference between writing a very beautiful function, which is a great piece of code, which will not be executed. If you want to use that code, you have to call it, okay? And calling a function is no more than writing down its name, opening parentheses, and putting inside any arguments that the function should have. No problem. Just one question, Beatrice, just to finish, to wrap up the explanation. You could have asked something like this. Wait, but main is also a function. I also say there, def main, so it's a function main also. So why is main called and sumar not? Because of this if. This if is exactly why the main function is called. The if says, if the name of this execution is __ main, and this always occurs whenever I say this. So if I'm calling this file through the terminal, this if on line 19 will be true. If it's true, I'm going to call function main. So if I don't write this if, function main will also not be called.
Okay. Yeah.
Deste lado, eu explico deste lado, está bem? Então, você quer usar a função, eu vou tirar aqui, ou melhor, diga-me lá o seu nome, que assim é da maneira que eu começo a... onde é que isto está? Ah, está aqui. Como é que você se chama? Desculpe. Ana, ok. Vou pôr aqui o teste da Ana. Ok, então. Espera lá que estou a fazer as medidas. Ok? Bem, agora sim. Então, temos aqui e você quer criar uma função para ler os caracteres. Portanto, eu em vez de fazer a função 4b, eu vou começar a fazer, não, perdão, em vez de fazer a 4a, eu vou fazer a 4b, que é uma função só que vai recebendo caracteres do teclado e enquanto eu não carregar num caractere específico, ela continua a pedir, ok? Então, como é que você tem que fazer? Você tem que fazer uma função read chars up to, e pomos aqui o stop char. Ok? Esta função vai ser chamada, portanto, se não é aquilo que eu estava a dizer à Beatriz, se eu não chamar daqui a função, esta função, vamos escrever um código espetacular e nunca o executamos. Portanto, eu aqui já estou a chamar a função. Agora a questão é, o que é que eu escrevo aqui dentro? Então, você estava a escrever uma coisa que era a seguinte. Primeiro, sabia que tinha que usar o read char, portanto, foi à net procurar o read char. Ok. Viu aqui que o read char se faz, por exemplo, assim. Okay? Portanto, o que eu estou a fazer aqui é ir buscar da biblioteca read char duas coisas, o read key e o key. Na verdade, o key nem sequer estou a usar, portanto, podia tirar. E depois, então, você pode ver aqui como é que se vai buscar uma tecla. Então, o que é que quer dizer capa, ou na verdade eu vou dizer key igual a read key? O que é que isto quer dizer? Vamos tirar daqui este key para não confundir. Quer dizer que eu vou chamar a função readKey, que foi escrita lá pelas pessoas da biblioteca, e que ela vai ficar à espera que o utilizador carregue numa tecla. E quando o utilizador carregar, essa tecla vai ser devolvida e copiada para o valor da variável key. Portanto, key aqui é uma variável. Okay? Quando você escreveu assim, key igual a print, enter aqui, o que é que está a acontecer? É input? Mas então o que é que você queria fazer aqui? Queria também colocar uma tecla? Pois, mas o read key já faz isso. Ao fim e ao cabo, você aqui não pode fazer duas vezes a mesma coisa. O read key já vai buscar a tecla. Você só pode, se quiser, imprimir uma coisa antes. E se quer imprimir, então tem que usar o print. E se puser o print, já não faz sentido já usar esta coisa aqui. Então eu ponho só enter aqui e aqui vai ao read key. E depois, para não acontecer o mesmo que aconteceu aqui ao colega, eu vou já testar se aqui é igual ao stop char. Porque senão o meu programa vai ficar bloqueado à espera de teclas até à eternidade. E se isto for verdade, eu vou sair. Vou fazer um break. Isto porque eu vou fazer isto ciclicamente. Tenho que pôr aqui um while. While true. Portanto, até à eternidade faz isto. Quando alguém puser uma tecla que é aquela que está acordada como sendo aquela para parar, eu paro. Faz sentido isto que você tem aqui? Ok, então vamos experimentar ver se funciona. Ora, o que está a acontecer aqui, na linha 18, é que eu estou a chamar a minha função sem argumentos. O parênteses abrir e fechar quer dizer que não há argumentos. E ela precisa de um argumento, precisa que eu lhe diga qual é o caractere de paragem. Eu vou dizer que ela vai parar com um X pequeno. Okay? Põe ali um X pequeno. Ok, carrega numa tecla, Q, W, pá, pá, pá. Uma das coisas que está a faltar neste programa é ele dizer-me em que tecla é que eu carreguei. Portanto, eu agora vou carregar no X pequeno e vou imprimir aqui e o press e vou somar aqui o K. Portanto, olha, carregaste, não é o K, é o key, não é o K, eu chamei aqui a variável. Por exemplo, A, carregaste no A, B, carregaste no B, C, carregaste no C, por aí fora. Quando eu carregar no X, e o press X e salta fora. Eu acho que você tinha aí umas coisas que não faziam muito sentido. Você consegue partilhar o ecrã? Porque eu quando vi o seu código, vi umas coisas que não me fizeram muito sentido. Ah, já tirou? Então pronto, já não as vou apanhar. Quer dizer, posso obrigá-lo a fazer undo. Pronto. Mas se isto que eu expliquei lhe fez sentido, fixe, isso é que é preciso. Pronto, então agora só lhe falta pôr na verdade começamos pelo exercício 4B, agora volto atrás ao 4A. Como é que eu faço uma funcionalidade para imprimir todos os caracteres até uma dada tecla? Então eu tento ajudar. Alguém, por falar nisso, para tentar ajudar a Ana, alguém conseguiu ter uma ideia de como fazer este print all previous chars? Já conseguiu? Então, partilhe o seu ecrã e começa aqui a explicar à malta. Estou curioso. Claro que não está a fazer bem, de certeza que está a fazer super errado, mas é para isso que nós estamos a pedir ajuda. Porque a malta aprende mais a ver os erros dos outros do que a ver o professor a acertar pela 30ª vez. E eu só acerto porque já fiz 30 vezes antes. Mas agora é verdade, acreditem que programar é ir corrigindo as coisas. Não há ninguém que programe sempre perfeito. Nós vamos ajeitando as coisas. Olha, so first, can I tell you about my allergy? I have a big allergy. And it's an allergy with whenever you don't take advantage of the screen size. I don't know if you like the red color, but why do you have this space here on the bottom? On the bottom. I'm writing, but it doesn't show. You have the red space there, so you should try to maximize the amount of space that you are seeing. You can put your code on the left and the terminal on the right. Terminal on the bottom. The terminal is going to be too small. It must be wider. If you continue like this, if you get used to this, it will not work for you. If you put this, the code is too small. So you really must try to, so in terms of screen space, what's really important is vertical screen space more than horizontal. Okay. Typically, the web page should be somewhere else, in another workspace. If you press Control Alt down, yeah, you put on another, yeah. So now something else. Sometimes I'm a bit annoying to the students, I know, but it's not on purpose. The idea is to try to pass you the experience that I have. And if you tell me, I do it like this because this is how I do it and how I think it should be done, that's okay. That's a good answer. But the typical answer from the students is, I do it like this because I didn't even think about it. Yeah. So if you're doing just because, then I tell you the way I do it, because it's not a just because. Typically, I put the code on the left and the execution on the right. Why? Because we write from left to right, and first we program and then we execute. Okay, my level of allergies is getting better. Now I can breathe. Okay, so now you can start explaining what you did.
So I use the chart for the key that reads the character. Then I use this function to
transform, yeah.
To transform the key that I read to the Ascii format. And now I'm interested for the sex as the final form. So I created
variable.
Yes, I created a new variable and extend to have the Ascii format.
Okay.
Now, what I was to do was to create for from the for the first.
Okay.
That is written by the user.
For the number associated with that character, yes.
Two is the access.
Okay.
And then print.
All of them, no?
Then print from
So you are still a bit far away from the solution. You are getting there, but let me try to explain first, and then we go back to your code, okay? It will make more sense, I think, after I explain. So let me try to explain first how I would do it. So this is P2, and this is exercise for A, thanks. EX for A. Okay. And we have here a main.phi. Now, the function, okay, I'm doing stuff, I'm not sharing the screen. Yeah, now I get it, I get it. You don't have to take away, I can overwrite. Actually, everyone can overwrite. So, now we are going to exercise for A, so we must define this new function called print all previous sharps. And our example will be for exercise for A, we just have to call, this is exercise for B, so I'm not going to run the code for the for B, now I'm just going to run the function sharps here, okay? This is just calling the function. Now, what must I put inside the function? So, the first thing you started off well, which is, okay, if I need to print all the characters until the character that is given, then I must get the character. So you started off well, you said key equals read key. Okay, so this is the key or the character to stop. So I will call this stop character. Okay, I think character is not well written. No, it is. Stop character. So first I will pick up the stop character. Then you were right. If we look at the Ascii table, which is here, we have these numbers associated to each character. So you just see from this table, you just take a look at, the only thing that is important is the decimal column and the character column, okay? That's what we want. So for example, space is 32, capital A is 65, and so on and so forth. So if I put a capital A, I want to go from 32 all the way. So whenever I get the key here, whenever I get my key here on line 19, stop character, I must get the number. So you were also correct there when you wanted to get the number from the character. But that's where you were starting to get it wrong in terms of implementation. So the idea was correct. I need to get my stop number. Okay, so the number associated with that character. How do I do this? I call the function orth of the stop character. So orth is a Python function that will give me the number of the Ascii table that corresponds to the character that is given as an argument. Okay, so this gets the number. Then I have my stop number. I can go for number in range number, in range. So I start with 32 because I want to start in space, you know why already. And then I go until my stop number. So this for loop is going to be iterating. If my example is to press A, so I'm going to iterate 32, 33, 34, blah, 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 until 65, okay? That's what I'm going to iterate. Now, for each of these numbers, I have a corresponding character. Character equals, so now I need to do the opposite. I need to go from the number to the character. This is done with the CHR function. So I use from the number, I go to the character, okay? And I have everything now. So another thing that you were not doing correctly was you did some of this inside the function, some other stuff you were doing outside. The function was supposed to do everything, okay? So now I can do something like this, printing all chars up to, and now I put here my stop char, stop character. Sorry, tell me again.
Function. And if it does all we want the name.
So something up to some So if you go from 1 up to 10, you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 10. No? I didn't understand the question, sorry.
No, it's just the name of the function, the
Let's see, the name of the function, read all. No, we are doing A, no? We are doing A. We are doing exercise A, no? Before we did for.
you see, write a function, you think of the character, and you think of characters. I don't know.
It should be the same, yeah, right, okay. So,
that name has any function or the function is
no, the name is arbitrary. The name of the function is arbitrary, as is the name of a variable. In any case, it's arbitrary, but it should be consistent. So I should put here a name of a function and then a different name. So this is something wrong in the PDF. Well, now in this case, I opted by the name all previous chars, and here I use the same name, so it's consistent. Now, so I'm saying printing all chars up to stop character, and here I'm going to print each of the characters. So in here, I have to print a character. So this does everything that was needed. Let's try it. So it asks me for a key. I'm going to put capital A. I think I'm running the wrong code. Yeah, I'm still running test Anna. So exercise 4A. Now, yes. So clear, and just to make sure that we are starting from the top of the terminal. So if I type a capital A, it will say printing all chars up to A. So it started with a space, exclamation point, blah, 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 until A. Okay, makes sense. Any questions? So it's normal that you see me explain and it makes sense. But if I tell you to do, it's harder to do. But you will start getting this, this skill if you continue to see more. Okay. Now a question. I wanted to print all the characters, not from top to bottom, which takes a lot of space, but I wanted to print all of the characters like this. Blah, 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 blah. Do you know how I could do this? Any ideas? Diga. The slash, okay. Okay. Well, if you do /n, what will, so the /n, this is what you mean, Anna? Yes? No, it doesn't work because this adds a new line. We want to take it away. If I put this, this is what happens, you see? So it adds yet another line. So the print already puts a /n. So the best way to do this, the most Pythonic way, is to do the following. Instead of iterating over all the numbers, and for each printing, I will iterate over all the numbers, compute the character corresponding to that number, that's line 25, and then store a list of characters. A list in Python is something that is able to store anything. In this case, we are going to store characters. So my characters. So whenever it's a list, I always put, I always use plural because a list takes a lot of stuff. So plural, characters in plural. And now I'm going to say, in order to add stuff to the list, I'm going to say characters dot append. That's the function that exists for the list that allows you to add a new element to the end of the list, character. Okay, I spoke about this in the theoretical. Yeah, you were all in the theoretical or not? You were. So I'm repeating myself. Okay, now we have a list of characters, which now we can print. If I print this list, let's put a B now, or an H. Okay, printing all characters up to H, blah, 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 until G. Makes sense. Any questions? You are making sounds like aha. Any question? No, when I'm at home, I also do them when I'm programming alone.
For instance, I haven't go there before I speak the first semester of my first year.
And now you are in the fourth, fifth?
Yeah, fourth year.
Fourth year. Mhm.
During the first year, we used Python, complex algorithms.
This kind of stuff. If you, I don't think you need, but if you want, you can go online and search for a Python tutorial. Sometimes there is a crash course on Python, 1 week course, something like this. If you feel you need, but this is a slow slope. It's not a very steep slope. I'm trying to, for example, there is another course that I teach where I'm not teaching Python. I'm starting right away with image processing, and that's harder. Here I'm teaching a bit of Python because when we get to ROS, it's going to be complicated, and it's better that you don't have a problem with Python by then. Okay, so can we jump to the next exercise? No questions. You don't have to worry about copying. I mean, you should try to do it at home, but you should remember, I will always put these exercises online, okay? If you remember me, if you don't, I forget. So let's jump to the next code. The next is C. We want to count the numbers up to stop sharp. So the idea here is that we can count all the numbers until a given sharp. So we are going to start asking for keys continuously. So give me a key, give me a key, give me a key, until, for example, we press X. When we press X, the program will have a list of all the keys that we pressed and figure out from this set which of those are numbers and which are not. Okay? So you can see that we are just incrementally adding a new functionality on top of what we learned before. So what can we do now? Let me copy paste this prototype of the function that we want to develop and paste it here. So this count all numbers up to the stop sharp. I'm going to call it here. Exercise for C, count all numbers up to. Okay. So to start, let's ask for many keys until we get the key stop sharp. For example, which is exactly what we did before with read sharps up to stop sharp. So I'm just going to copy the code. And you will see this code. So while true, that means it runs forever. Enter a key. Then read the key from the user. Then say you press something. Then if this something is different from, it's the same as the stop sharp, stop. So what we need additionally, besides this, is to store a list of the keys that the user has pressed. Okay. So I will use exactly the same idea. Keys equals an empty list. Whenever we press key, my list of keys will have a new element which is appended, which is the new key. Okay. So for now, let's not worry about this. Let's just consider this part. In the end, I will say user pressed, and now here I will put keys. Okay. So, for example, if I run this code count numbers of the missing one. Okay, I need to give it the stop char. So again, let's use the X. Now, if I run this code and I write A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, and then X, it said, okay, the user pressed A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, X. Okay. Now, first question. The X is used to abort, to stop. So I don't want the X to be on this list. How can I do it? Okay, that's a good idea. So where should I write the pop function? Where can I put this pop function? You can refer to a code line, 42, 40.
After you and so like it's
38 here. Keys dot pop. That's what you want. Okay, so pop will remove an element. What you are doing here is we append the key and then you always take it away.
oh yeah, sure.
You should take it away only if it is a stop char, no? So where should I put this? Because you have to speak louder. I don't. Not between the parentheses. It's in the part of the code where it only runs if the stop char, if the key is equal to the stop char.
Oh, my.
Inside the if, no? So if the key is the stop char, take away the last keys that I added. Let's try to see if it works. A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, X. Now it works, okay? Your solution before was a bit destructive because whenever I added the key, I would remove it. A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, X. There is nothing there, right? So, but still, I think there is a better way. And don't worry about not thinking about the better way because nobody does in the first time they think about this. What you are doing is you are fixing the issue. You are fixing the problem. So the problem was that I added the last letter and then you fixed it because you took it away. But what if we could, instead of fixing the problem, not even creating it? Can you think of what we could do in this code to solve the same problem in a different way? So can we, so the problem was that we added the key when we pressed X. What if we didn't add the key when we pressed X? And what can we do in the code to change this? Any ideas? Your face is like, I don't understand what he's saying, right?
Yeah,
So, look, you have, let me try to show what the code is doing. Oh, sorry, undo. Here, this is what I mean. So when your code is running, you have the list of keys. And you are going to put their stuff. So first I type A, you put A. I type B, you put B. I type C, you put C. 1, 2. And then I'm going to type X. And you are going to put there an X. And then what you suggested was, okay, so now what I must do is to fix by removing. Right? So this is like a fix. It's taking away the X and finally getting the list A, B, C, 1, 2. But what you are doing is you are fixing because you are doing the, not you, but what the code is doing is it's adding the X and then removing the X. But it could be that it doesn't even add the X. So then it doesn't have to remove it. So, for example, here, whenever I read the key, I'm always appending it. But if I append the key only after I test if the key is equal to the stop char, I will only put it in the list if that is not true. So in the end, I will not even put an X there, so then I don't have to take it away. Make sense? Okay, nice. So A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, X. Still it works. It's the same. It's just I think it makes more sense. How to do multiple line comments? Multiple lines. I'm using a special editor, which is a Vim, which is called Vim, which is a bit tricky. But in Visual Code, you can select this and click Control Shift 7. It should work. Try it. I have different shortcuts. Shift 7, eh? Control Shift 7. No? No, sometimes because it's the laptops. It depends on whether the laptop has this numpad keyboard or not. You got it? Just that? Okay, great. It depends from, in mine is, everything is different. But Beatrice said, explained the correct way. I mean, you go to the menus and see, and it says the shortcut on the right-hand side. So you can always see which is the shortcut in your case, okay? Now I'm lost, where were we? Yeah, count the numbers, okay. So now this was just to create a list of keys that we have, and it's being printed there. Now we have to somehow, in a second stage, process the list of keys and figure out which of those are numbers, right? So I will use exactly the same logic, which will be, I will create a list of keys numbers and a list of keys others, those which are not numbers. And now what I need to do is I iterate over the list, so list of for key in keys. I will check if the key is numeric or not. If key dot is numeric, that's a function that exists. If it is numeric, I will append it to the keys numbers. Dot append key. If it is not numeric, I will append it to the keys others. Dot append key. Makes sense? Now, I can also print these two new lists that I've created. I will keys numbers. Numbers, okay. Keys others. Okay, so now we have here the two lists containing only the numbers and only the others. Let's try it. So A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, X. So you can see here that I pressed all these, and in the end it says the numbers are those and the others are A, B, C, D. Makes sense. So it's working. However, the problem asked not for us to say which were the characters that were pressed, but how many were numeric and how many were non-numeric. So we have to take the number of keys that I pressed that are numeric. For that, we use the function len. Len comes from length, and it will give us the number of elements in a list. So we can say here that our total numbers is the len of the keys numbers. That means the number of elements in the keys numbers list. Len of the others. Oops, these others. Okay, so now we get to the final solution, which prints also the name, the number. So A1, B2, C3, D, X. So I enter 3 numbers and 4 others. Okay.
But also use count, or is it better?
Count, I don't know about count. Is it the same? Count. A1, B2, C3, D, X. I don't have the count here. How do you use the count?
It says you can use it with the, also with the,
Share your screen with us. Let's take a look. So, okay, so the list dot count, yeah, you could dot count, but this count is to count the number of the share is, no? If you don't put anything inside the count, it will count everything. Yeah, let's try. I will try it on my side. So whenever I want to do these small experiments, I turn on what is called a Python interactive console. So here I'm just typing Python instructions. So for example, if I have a list A, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I say the len of A, it is 7 elements. If I say A dot count, it needs something. So it needs me to tell him count the number, how many elements there are, which are 2, which is 1. So for example, if my list would be A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 2. If I would count now how many times the element 2 would appear, it would be 3. So the count counts the number of times the element appears in the list, not the number of elements in the list. It's slightly different. Any questions? Can I move on to the next one? Yeah. So the next one. Yeah, so I already did this automatically. So I tried to do the code and I already did it in a Pythonic way. So the idea here was that we would first get the inputs and only later on and put them in a list. The inputs are the keys and then process all these inputs. That's exactly what we have. We have a first stage which will read all the keys or inputs and put them in the keys list. That's our first stage. You can think about it as number 1. And then we have number 2, which is to process the list of keys and figure out which of those are numbers. Okay? So this was already done. We already did a separate, this is already segregated, let's say. And you are saying, but why? What would be the alternative, right? So this is better than what? I don't know what else would be the alternative. The alternative is what many people do, which is to mix up both functionalities in the same for loop. For example, I could have designed my count numbers up to blah, 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 like this. I'm going to copy a new one, okay? So this is the old one, which I'm going to comment. And this is the new one. So I could have read all the inputs and don't put them in the list, but see if they are numeric and then count them. So I could have done something like this. I start with my total numbers equals 0 and my total others equals 0. Then I don't do a list of keys. And I start asking for a key. And then I say, oh, you press this, you press that. Then I don't append. What I say is, I'm going to immediately test if the key that was pressed is numeric or not. If it is numeric, then I must increment the total numbers. Plus equal 1. And in this case, I'm going to increment the total others plus equal 1. In the end, I will also have a solution. So from start, because this may be confusing, I initialize two numbers. These are not lists, these are scalars with 0. Then I start asking for characters. Give me a character. And someone types A. So I say, okay, my key is A. It's not the stop character, so I will continue. And then if A is numeric, it is not, so A is not, so I will say total others equals total others plus 1. So I'm not creating a list of what was pressed, I'm just keeping track of the total number of numbers and non-numbers that were pressed, okay? This also works like this, it's the same, so if I run it, it will also print correctly. A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, X, so it still prints the same, but I don't recommend this way of doing things. Why? Because you are mixing together many functionalities. This type of code is much harder to maintain and to improve than the other, because the other had separated, just getting the keys, then just analyzing the keys that were processed. If I tell you some extra exercise like, okay, now do something different instead of just being numeric. If it's numeric, it must be smaller than 9, blah, blah, blah. If I start complicating, it is much easier to start working on top of this because it's modular, than on top of this because everything is tied to, it's connected. A lot of ties between things makes it harder to program, okay? It's easier to try to explain this to people who don't program so much so far, because this is the kind of stuff that the kind of feeling that we start having after programming for a couple of years. So if it doesn't make a lot of sense for you now, it's also normal, don't worry about it. So let's move on to 5B. We already did it, it's a list of numeric inputs. Then 5C is to create a dictionary. This is important for me to tell you what dictionaries are. So again, a Python console. What is a dictionary? So you know that the list is something like this, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. A dictionary is a different kind of data structure. It's initialized like this. So the brackets, the curved brackets, and then a dictionary is a map. What is a map? It has a key and a value. For example, let's initialize a map to describe myself. I have a name, which is Miguel, okay? Then I have a course, which is PSR. So in this case, name and course are keys, and Miguel and PSR are the values that correspond to those keys, okay? So for example, now if I print the D, it will show exactly what we said. If I want to access a particular value for a key, I can say D name. So I want to get the name of this dictionary, or better, I want to get the value that corresponds to the key name. That's Miguel. What I did here on top was the initialization of the dictionary. So I can create a dictionary and it already contains a lot of keys and values. But I could also want a dynamic dictionary, one that increases over time. So for example, now I know my age. So I can say D age equals 25. So now my dictionary D has a new key called age with a corresponding value 25, okay? This is a dictionary. Dictionaries are used for representing all kinds of information, and they are very useful. In this case, we want to create a dictionary that, this is in part, wait. We want to create a dictionary that is something like this. So, for example, if my keys are going to be, sorry, this is a list, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, something like this. My dictionary of the numeric keys, so keys, numeric, dict dictionary is going to be something like this. So I only have two numeric keys. The first and the key for the dictionary, so this is the key, first key, is going to be the number, not the number, the order in which the value was written. So for example, I will put here value 1, which is this, and this was entered on position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it has to be something like this. On the fourth position, on the fourth order, I entered number 1. Then on the fifth place, I entered number 2. Okay? This is the kind of dictionary that we want. As a key, we want the order in which the input was entered. As the value, we want the input that was entered. This is just an example for you to try to use dictionaries. Everyone understands the objective? Yeah? So how can we do it? We can do something like this. I will go back to the previous. For the dictionary, keys, that's what you said. Do we? That's a good question. Let me ask everyone. So, sorry, what's your name? Enrique was saying, oh, if we want to store the order in which the key was inserted, we need to have a variable for this. And my question is, do we really, or do we have this information elsewhere? Let me print. So A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, X. So do we have this information or not?
No, we can find the link from using first.
Let's see, for example, I can create a dictionary like this. Let me start from here. So I can, for example, create the dictionary. This is exercise for 5C. So first I need to create first a dictionary, which will be the dictionary of the keys, dict, for example. First I will create a dictionary containing all the keys. I will start with an empty dictionary, okay? And now I will iterate over all my keys, so for key in keys. I'm just going to say my keys dictionary will be with the key. And here I must put, this must be the dictionary key. Yeah, the keys I'm using, so let's call it inputs dictionary. Well, here I'm going to put the order by which this key was entered, which is the same that appears in this list. So since I'm iterating over this list, I can do a counter here, equals 0. Counter plus equal 1. And here my dictionary key will be the counter. Okay? Yes, that's a variable. Yeah. Yes, you did. So for example, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, X. So now I have here. So you enter the dictionary is on position 0, you place an A, on position 1 you put a B, on position 2 you put a C, on position 3 you put a 1, and so on and so forth. So about this variable, yes, now we need it here, and perhaps yes, perhaps we will always need it. So my question, perhaps the best answer was no. So let's forget about this idea of the variable, let's just use it. And the only thing that we need different now is to create a dictionary which will not contain all the keys, but just the numeric keys. So this should be just the numeric. How do you say, how can we do this? Any ideas? I know you feel a bit lost, and it's a symptom of not having prepared the class before. So if you tried it before, you would be more, I don't know how to say. You will be better prepared, I think. So if you prepare next class, it will be better, for sure. Use what again, sorry? The what?
You have to use this numeric again.
Yes, sure. That's it. I didn't understand this. I don't hear well. Yes, of course we have to use this if. So if you want to create a dictionary containing only the is numeric, we can test, and if it is numeric, we add it to the dictionary. If it's not, we don't. That's it.
But then we have the transfer. No, because you want the position to change.
Yes, we want the position of the input, not the position of the numbers. So let's see. It will work, I think, but let's do A1, B2, C3, X. So you pressed 1 on the first. So here, don't forget, I start with 0, so this is the second. Then you press 2 on the third order, and you press number 3 on the fifth order. Makes sense, okay? Okay, so we have only 10 minutes left, so I will stop here. If you need any help, I will be here, but for now I will stop here. Try to do the other exercises at home, and don't forget to prepare for next week, okay?
Will we get that file?
Yes, I will put it there now, so you can study. So, examples. P2. I think let's see. So if you go here, to P2, you already have everything here, okay?
Commercial climate.
Yes.
Now, we start class.
No need, only in 7 weeks. And I will tell you how. Yeah, so first we will be on Python, don't worry. Yeah. You just have to stick to this. So in my GitHub here, always tells you what you must do. So for example, rows will only appear when we get to part 08. So for now, we just install Linux and VS Code and try to do this. And then we'll speak about it. Okay? Yeah, it will take a while still. Para a semana, tem que carregar no botão, sabe? Já sabe? Tem que carregar no botão que está à esquerda. Tá bom? Tá? Ok, boa.